reminds me of Y2K, Dennis. Like the sky is falling, the world's going to come to an end. All we're going to do is go back to normal Title VIII processing. This is nothing novel or nothing new. And I think all the hype is unwarranted.
The perspective from Santa Cruz County Sheriff David Hathaway trying to downplay some of the concern over the end of the pandemic-era border policy known as Title 42 and the impact it'll have in Nogales. The policy suspended all asylum cases for the past few years, expelling millions of migrants in the name of stopping the spread of COVID.
While it is set to end 1 week from today, Senator Sinema is now asking to extend it 2 more years. Political editor Dennis Welch caught up with the sheriff, who says he is not seeing a surge in Nogales.
Yeah, it's a lot different than what you're hearing from a lot of other different elected officials, law enforcement officials in Arizona and elsewhere. And while Sheriff Hathaway didn't seem too concerned about the end of Title 42, he is frustrated with the Biden administration and how they are handling the end of it. At least in that regard, he does join Congressman Ruben Gallego and and Arizona Senators Kyrsten Sinema and Mark Kelly, who are worried the White House is not prepared. Sinema, the state's senior senator, introduced legislation today that would essentially extend Title 42 for another 2 years. Meanwhile, the Biden administration has reportedly sent about 1,500 troops to the border to work in backup positions to prepare for the possible influx of migrants once the policy ends. Hathaway said he's had no communication with the president's team about those plans and admitted that he's frustrated.
It's kind of shocking to me that they're talking again about sending troops to the border. Nobody's contacted me officially. I've only heard this through press releases that the Biden administration is sending 1,500 troops to the border. I don't know if they're sending them to my part of the border or Texas, New Mexico, California. This is something that apparently is being rolled out without any communication or coordination with local officials.
Instead of troops, Hathaway told me that he'd like to see more immigration officials down at the border to help speed up the process, especially for those asylum seekers. So far, we haven't heard from Governor Hobbs on what she plans and how she plans to respond to the end of Title 42, but I was told by her staff recently that she is expected to make some announcements next week, likely on Monday and on Tuesday. Back over to you guys.
Dennis, interesting that the sheriff said he hasn't heard anything from the White House about this. Have any of the other sheriffs talked about whether we might be seeing troops down at our border? And we know they're likely probably headed in bulk to Texas, but we should expect some here, I would assume.
Yeah, and and honestly, I have not reached out and spoken today with any of the other border sheriffs, in Pima County or in Yuma County to see what they're expecting there. Now, the sheriff from Santa Cruz. Now, he was telling me, Sheriff Hathaway was telling me that he's had good communication with Governor Hobbs, that he feels like she's doing a good effort in communicating with them on what she can do. But unfortunately, the border is a federal issue, and governors, they control the state and have very limited options.
See you next week.
Dennis, thank you. And tonight we are getting a look at the hot spots, seeing the most migrant crossings at the Mexican border. El Paso, where we've seen footage this week of hundreds of migrants in the streets, is at the top of the list. CBP is tracking more than 265,000 encounters there since October. Tucson's the third busiest sector with more than 146,000 migrants coming through. Yuma is in fifth, right after Rio Grande.